Your hill training is causing more harm than good.
Okay, let's see if he separates his opinions from the evidence.
Hill training is not supposed to be this grueling session to improve your fitness. It's a controlled session to work on your biomechanics.
Well, that certainly is one really effective type of hill training that you can do, but it is in no way the only type of hill training that you would want to do depending on the type of runner, the event they're getting ready for. There's just a lot of variables here when it comes to hill training, which is a very general type of training. Before we get too far in this video, I definitely want to take a moment and just say, I really do very much respect Lewis as a coach. He really knows his stuff. If you look at a lot of his videos, he has great content on there. In a lot of cases really does follow the science, but in this case, I think that maybe something was lost in translation. He maybe has done a lot of focus on this type of the speed, power, biomechanics in hills, and he's probably lost the fact that there's a lot of reasons why you might want to do this. This clearly has not been presented as evidence just yet, but we did kind of engage in the comments, and it got to the point where it was starting to make these assertions that the evidence shows that this is the only type of hill training, but it's not been articulated at this point in the video. So just want to make sure that's very clear. Lewis, fantastic coach, knows his stuff, in a lot of cases does follow the science. You kind of devolve into, especially with human physiology, that this is the only way to do something, or this will always make you worse. There's going to be nuance there that we definitely want to look at.
Runners are doing long hill sessions to try and get more gains, but all they're doing is losing their posture, overstriding, and causing a buildup of fatigue.
So yes, by definition, you definitely don't want anybody to overstride or have poor mechanics. That's kind of part of those terms. But there's definitely a reason why a hill session could build in some fatigue that could help somebody on race day. We even talked about this, and this is where we're gonna kind of look at the comments. We were going back and forth with Lewis just a little bit in the comments here about this. And there's reasons why we talked about things like you might wanna do a medium hill. If somebody's about to start doing flat ground special endurance and you wanna make sure that they're primed and ready for it, that hill can actually keep things a little bit more in check so that they're not doing something they're not prepared for on flat ground running and have some negative consequences. If you're somebody that's getting ready for like a marathon on a hilly course or a half marathon, you're going to probably incorporate some rolling hill terrain during your regular runs, your long runs. That's a type of hill training. And you might even do some things that are at marathon pace effort on hills, especially if you're getting ready for, like, say, the Boston Marathon. I'm working with some athletes that are doing that right now, and they need to know how to maintain and feel what that effort is like on a hill. These are all reasons why a coach might program things like this for somebody that's not necessarily, a one-size-fits-all, and this is the only type of hill training that you would be doing. And then we also mentioned the fact that you might have an athlete who's more advanced that might need to do some things at like VO₂max effort on a longer hill to try to really prime them as they're getting into that pre-comp part of the season, about 6 to 8 weeks before their goal race, to really hit them hard and functionally overreach, especially if they're a more well-trained athlete in these shorter, more VO₂max focused type of events. And that's where things really started to devolve in the comments, and where we started to make where Lewis started to make some claims that are not substantiated by the evidence. So these types of hills you can do. There's other hills that I haven't thought of in here, and this is where the art of coaching comes into play, where you look at different things and you see what might work for somebody's particular situation. Now, this is going to be a two-part video because we didn't really get all that much into the hills. I'm looking at some of these hill training studies right now to really continue this part of the argument, but Lewis made some really specific claims about VO₂max training that I'm going to put up on the screen up here, about a particular study that he cites. And in this study, he says, and you can see from his comments right here, that he claims that VO₂max training stops improving after 6 weeks. He kind of then walks it back and says that it's 8 weeks, and he says that this training, or this study here specifically shows that. I've not seen that at all in the evidence, but he said that it's very clear, and he cites this study. So let's take a look at the paper itself. So I am going to be looking down at the study a few points, but I'm also going to be putting portions of this up on the screen so you can see what it is that I'm talking about here. But essentially in the study we had 39 people. They were all adults, at least 30 years old, and as old as into their 70s. And basically what they were looking at here was, did improvements from VO₂max, particularly what they were looking at, did it improve better if you had generic training or things that were specific to your cardiorespiratory fitness? Or what they called CRF in this. And these were sedentary people, so Lewis citing this study is a little strange because it's not really, I think, the people that he's probably working with. It's not typically the people that I'm working with, but we can still take things from this because these people did continue to see VO₂max improvements after that 8-week window, the way Lewis said that they didn't, or that it doesn't improve after that. So this study actually directly contradicts what he says in terms of the claims and the comments here. So they looked at these people, they took their baseline VO2 max, and then they tested them after 4 weeks, 8 weeks, and 12 weeks. And again, those two main groups, general training versus specific to your current VO2 max. And the type of things, again, that I do as a coach, and I'm sure Lewis does as a coach for his people, the exact type of training that we do where we figure out your VO2 max and we set out your actual training parameters from it. The funny thing is that they did improve, both groups continue to improve all the way through each time. These were sedentary people and now they're moving, makes perfect sense. But that group that was getting specific training, so your targeted work based on your current VO2 max, they of course continue to see improvements after that 8 weeks, even though Lewis claimed that they would not from what he was saying here, and this was the study that he gave me to show that it would not. After 12 weeks, the people that were in that group that was getting the training that was specific for their current fitness improved their VO2 max by 1.4, and that is, again, the milliliters per kilogram of body weight per minute. That was their biggest improvement. Their biggest improvement in terms of their VO2 max came after 8 weeks, even though Lewis is saying that people stop improving in their VO2 max after 6 weeks, or then he changed it to 8 weeks of VO2 max training. So I'm not really sure why he provided this as the evidence for his case that VO2 max stops improving after 8 weeks, because this blatantly contradicts this. And even the people that their improvement slowed, but the people that were getting general training still got some improvement in their VO2 max afterwards, while it was way, way smaller. So, what happened here in terms of this? Now, I can only speculate on this, but I do want to look at the conclusion here because I think it says two very important things in terms of this. So basically, in the conclusion, I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can see it as well. On a practical level, these are the things that coaches can take from it, the practical level. And based on our data, exercise specialists like myself and Lewis may consider a reevaluation of the CRF training program for previously sedentary individuals. Again, this was looking at previously sedentary people, if improvements in VO2 max are not observed after 8 weeks of training. Now, I had to stop and do a double take because I saw that stop improving after 8 weeks, but of course, that's only if you're looking at the second half of the sentence. It is saying in this that if you stop seeing improvements after 8 weeks, you need to reevaluate it. That probably means a retest of their VO2 max, changing their training targets, maybe changing something that you're doing, introducing a new type of training. That the specialist, the coach, myself or Lewis are the two coaches that are involved in this discussion. We need to look at ourselves if we are not seeing an improvement in VO2 max after 8 weeks. That's not really what it sounds Lewis is doing. He's getting to, 8 weeks and then saying, I'm not doing this anymore. That's interesting because it's directly contradicting what the data is saying that we should be doing as coaches. Now, this is one study. He's claiming there's a whole bunch that would say this. And in fact, I'll talk about that in a second. But how did we get there from here? I think it'd be really hard for you to read this study. It jumped right out to me in terms of the data that they were continuing to improve at the end. And if you read the conclusion, yes, if you read the conclusion really quickly and not really look at what it's saying, you could come across with it saying not improving. But again, it's saying that the onus is on the coach in that situation to change the program so that they will continue to see improvement. Then he told us that we needed to look at a specific study from a guy named Blimey. I'm going to put that comment up here. We have searched high and low on Google Scholars, on different places where you can look for this. To the best of my knowledge, and I looked at this many, many times, to the best of my knowledge, there is no study that talks about how VO2 max is or is not important, or what different parameters are for, he says 800 meter to 1500 meter training. However, I do have a study that I'm referenced to him, and I'm going to put that on the screen here. That is by Ingham. That is this one right here. If you look for and you type in this in terms of determinants of 800 meter to 1500 meter running performance, this study will pop right up if you put Ingham's name in there. It came out in 2008. It's a little bit of an older study, but it will pop right up. And it definitely talks about the importance of VO2 max in this and why you would, if VO2 max is important, and if this other study is telling us that VO2 max continues to improve, you might want to do it pretty continually throughout your training. So This is not necessarily about hill training, because for some reason, every time we were asking for hill training, he would give us things like this blinding study about hills being important, which again, we cannot find. Lewis, if you have this study, please send it to us. Again, you said that you kept sending it to us and we did not have a link. We didn't have any way of finding it. And we really did spend a lot of time trying to find this study, because again, if this is something that's really impactful for training, doing it this only way, we want to know it, because we want to do this for our athletes as well. But I have other evidence here that tells me directly that VO₂max is important for these types, and that VO₂max continues to improve after 8 weeks. So I'm going to want to keep doing that, especially if VO₂max improves the most after 8 weeks, as it was found in this one study. There may be other studies that show other things. So again, we're going to come back with the second part of this. We've definitely been looking at different types of hill training. And in fact, we have another one right here. I'll put that in the caption. I'll put it up on the screen here. But this in particular study was looking at some different types of hill training. And they actually found that the people that got the best improvement in their 5K time trials were the ones that actually did the more medium intensity hills, the kind of thing that I would say that you would definitely want to include if you're a 5K runner. So we'll put that in the caption down below. We'll be back when we've had a chance to look at, we pulled a bunch of different hill studies and we want to really have a thorough discussion in this. And again, Lewis, if you do have that study that's from the author Blimey, you didn't give us a title on this, otherwise we would have looked that up as well. We definitely would want to look at that, but we're definitely looking at some other types of training here that we definitely feel would be impactful in terms of hill training for athletes, especially since your video didn't necessarily say that it was just for 800 or 1500 meter runner. Maybe that's what you meant, but it's not necessarily what was said. And you definitely did double down on the fact that this was the only type of hill training, these are the only focuses that you would want, when there's definitely a lot of reasons why you would include hills. This is why we always like to say that if somebody says that something is always one way or never one way, especially when you're dealing with human physiology, there's almost always going to be nuance here. So definitely, if you're watching this video, don't take my word for it. Take a look at the studies that I've referenced. But I think that there's some pretty clear and compelling evidence that VO₂max continues to improve after 8 weeks. And then again, I'll put this first study, I'm looking at a few more, that there's reasons why you would do some different types of hill intensity, not just super short, super fast, because there's other reasons why you'd want to do it, other fitness gains that you can get from hills, because hills are a super powerful type of training that you're going to want to include almost no matter what type of running that you're doing, unless you have a specific reason why you wouldn't. Again, if you have any videos that you've seen where people are making some pretty strong claims about the science says, or that something is clear, send those to us. We'd love to look at it. I personally love looking at the evidence here and seeing how it can actually apply to training. So if you do have any of these, you've seen these, definitely send me the link and I'll take a look at it and respond with a video.
Guys, first time breaking 15, join FRC. It's worth it.